It's 27 degrees.
And now, the fabric of family.
Hi, I'm Barry Gilreath, your host for Fabric of the Family. I'm the evangelist for the Highland Church of Christ in Dalton, Georgia, and I appreciate you being with us today for what will no doubt be a very fascinating program. I have with me Gary Hill. Gary is one of the evangelists for the South Bypass Church of Christ in Dalton, Georgia. Gary is a native of Summerville, Georgia. He also has some expertise in the area of archaeology, and he has been on a number of archaeological digs. He has engaged in a lot of study in this particular area, and we're just glad to have you here with us, Gary. And you know, some may be viewing this program today thinking, what does archaeology have to do with the family? Gary, what would you say?
The one answer, Barry, I would give immediately is archaeology illuminates and illustrates the portions of the Bible which discuss the family, showing us, number one, the Bible's historically accurate, and also just making a fascinating illustration of what it was like during Bible times makes the Bible come alive for us.
And you have some very interesting artifacts here on this table before us. Gary, how about telling us a little bit about one of the artifacts there?
All right. At the back here, we have a little bowl from the time of King David. And again, this bowl probably would have sit on a Israelite table during meal times, and would have maybe had dates or olives or something in it. And again, just showing that the Israelites lived and had family life just like our family life, and just like we have special bowls and utensils that we use in cooking and also in eating. And this is a little Israelite bowl, beautifully made. It's got a big crack in the side here because it's 3,000 years old, Barry. Yeah. But just something that they would have used in their everyday life, in their family life.
Now, Gary, how do you know that's 3,000 years old?
We know that because we found so many things. Archaeology, Barry, is a science that's about 150 years old. Okay. Before that time, people would go to the Holy Lands and other places and basically be treasure hunters. Yeah. And try to find beautiful things. They would leave things like this alone because it wasn't interested to them. But when archaeology became a science, we started studying the culture of the people, how they lived, you know, their family life, things that we're asking questions about today. And we have found so many pieces of pottery. It's like we can date cars. If you're out here and you see a 57 Chevy, you know it's a 57 Chevy because of the way that car was made. Well, pottery in the ancient world was that way. It changed over the centuries. And we have just learned to date things based upon the style of pottery. Like, for an example, this is an oil lamp, Barry, and the simplest oil lamps were just bowls with a pinch on the end of them. But this is an oil lamp from the time of Jesus, and we know that because we've found literally thousands of these, and we found coins and other things to help us date it. And there's large books. As a matter of fact, Barry, I'm the pottery registrar. It's my official title on our dig site. And basically, I have a great big 3,000-page book that I set in front of me, and any piece of pottery we find, I look through that book. It's sort of the encyclopedia of things that have been found in Israel in the last 100 years, and based upon the style of pottery, I can date things.
Are there some exciting things happening right now in archaeology?
Wonderful, wonderful, exciting things. As a matter of fact, probably, Barry, the most exciting thing is last August, a young lady whose name, she is a third-generation Israeli archaeologist. Her name is Eilat Mazar. She has a famous uncle whose name is Omaha Mazar, and she had a famous grandfather whose name was Benjamin Mazar. Eilat Mazar in the city of Jerusalem, which, by the way, we can't dig much in Jerusalem because of the Muslim-Israeli problem. But in the city of Jerusalem, she believes she has found King David's palace. And there are some skeptics out, men like Israel Finkelstein. We have books in our bookstore that say things like David is not historically accurate as depicted in the Bible, and he would not have become a king of the United Monarchy during that time period. It's finds like that, Barry, that make archaeology so exciting. She pretty much, by that one find, has disproved the skeptics, the modern day skeptics about King David.
And, you know, it's a shame that people doubt the Bible.
Yes.
And sometimes it takes things like archaeology for these skeptics to be silenced. But of course, for those of us who are believers, those of us who trust in the Bible, we know the Bible and we trust the Bible is accurate. But nevertheless, this is a very effective tool to use to silence the skeptics.
Yes. Well, talking about the family, Barry, some earlier finds, for an example, people used to say the stories of Abraham were not accurate. Well, in the 1940s and 50s, the last century, scientists, archaeologists discovered the city of Ugarit and other cities in Syria, which basically described almost to a T a lot of the things you read about that went on in Abraham's life. For an example, Abraham giving Hagar to have a child, to have an heir. Well, you know, these cities that were discovered have tablets in which discuss that was a very common practice. And then if the wife then later had a child, then the child of the handmaiden's child was not the heir. Exactly what the Bible says, proving the Bible's historically accurate. And time again, like you mentioned, archaeology has come to the rescue of the Bible and shown us that it is historically accurate.
And you know, another thing that pottery can do, no doubt, is to teach us a little bit about things such as their clothing.
Definitely so. Pottery is, like I said before, Barry, and this is the illustration I used, it is the Tupperware of the ancient world. They stored everything in pottery, and we found Israelite houses that were destroyed almost immediately because of earthquakes or because of war, and everything in the house has been found, and we've been able to sort through it and study it and see what they wore. One of the famous tomb paintings in Egypt is the tomb painting at Beni Hassan. Beni Hassan has a picture of a group of Semitic people coming into Egypt during around 2100 BC. That's the time of Abraham coming into Egypt. And we know what they wore because of this tomb painting. They wore beautiful colored, bright clothes. The women are dressed in sandals and long flocks. And it's you know, we find archaeology illustrates and illuminates so many things in the Bible for us.
Well, Gary, you know, I see looks like a little Egyptian mummy there on the table. Is that an Israeli artifact?
No, this is found in a tomb in Egypt, and it's broken in half, but we had to put it back together. But this was buried with the Egyptians, and basically it was a good luck symbol. The Egyptians, as we know from the book of Exodus, worshipped many and false gods. And one of the purposes of the 10 plagues, Barry, the Bible specifically says in the book of Exodus, was to show that Yahweh was the one true God and the Egyptian gods were false. This would have been a symbol, a good luck symbol for those buried in the Egyptian tombs. Has hieroglyphics, as you can see, written down here on the side. And a lot of things, there's a lot of countries that we can excavate in and study in, which will illustrate and illuminate the Bible, not only Israel. I've been privileged to go to Egypt and Syria and Jordan and Greece and Italy, and look at some of the museum things and
And
study
approximately
these.
how old is that, Gary?
This probably dates from the intertestamental period.
Okay.
We're not sure about that. We're not as sure as in dating some of the Egyptian things as we are as the Israelite things.
Well, you know, it's interesting that you have that, because it kind of leads into another question that I have, and that is, did the Israelites have little
Well, no.
tokens in their home like this?
Well, they didn't. As a matter of fact, and if they did, they certainly, by the prophets, would have been condemned. But on our dig site, Barry, we have the Canaanite side, we have the Philistine side, and we have the Israelite side. In the Israelite houses, you don't find things like this. Now, there have been some Israelite homes that have had little tokens like this, and again, illustrating why the prophets constantly were warning Israel against worshiping and serving the false gods. As a matter of fact, one of the great, exciting trips I took one time to study this was in Syria, and I was in a room, Barry, that had probably 100 Baals. And of course, Baal, as you remember, is mentioned many times in the Old Testament as the false Canaanite god. We know what Baal looked like, the false Baal.
Well, you had Elijah, the prophet, who had the showdown with the prophets of Baal. Mm-hmm. And so go ahead. You were saying you were in a room that had all
we were in a room that had all these different little statuettes of Baal, and you know, he had changed over the centuries of how he supposedly had looked. And again, it illustrates you know, the foolishness of false gods. Both Isaiah and Jeremiah make fun of man, you know, taking clay or taking wood and making a god and then bowing down and worshiping, you know, him. And it's really interesting to read that. And but it's really interesting to see the little gods and goddesses. We found numerous ones on our site during the Canaanite period.
And the Egyptians were oftentimes buried with these little gods, were they not?
Right. Yes. This would have been a tomb. This would have been in a tomb and been buried with the deceased for good luck.
What about the Israelite tombs?
The Israelite tombs are a lot simpler. Again, in the ancient world, in the ancient Near East, Barry, all the Israelite homes, the Israelite clothing, the Israelite food staples. We were mentioning food in the last lesson. One of the things the average Israelite didn't do very much at all was eat meat. He would eat bread, and he would eat fruits, and he would eat vegetables and dates and pomegranates and things like that. Cheese, you know, from the goats and the cows, but he didn't eat much meat. The tombs are the same way. Again, Israelite society is simpler. It's less complex. And the tombs, a lot of times, were not decorated at all. They were just, of course, during the time of Jesus, a lot of people were buried in caves and in tombs carved out of the rocks. Been inside numerous tombs in Israel, Barry, and most of the time it's just plain wall. And also during the time of Jesus, and talking about an interesting archaeological find, people were buried in ossuaries. And sort of kind of gross, but...
explain what you mean by that.
Okay. Ossuaries just means bone box, and they were little boxes about half the size of this table here, and basically they would let the body rot for a year, and then they would take all the bones and put in a box.
Okay.
And there have been numerous bone boxes found, including one that had an inscription on the side that said James, the son of Joseph, the brother of Jesus, which caused certainly quite a stir in the archaeological world and the world. And we do, and again, there's some debate whether that is exactly our James, but whether it is or not, it just illustrates one of the things, how they buried people. Families would get a cave, We have the story, of course, I guess the first story in the Bible, Barry, is Abraham buying the cave of Machpelah for his beloved Sarah. And then, of course, he was buried there, as well as Isaac and other of the ancestors. But
So you're saying they would take the body and they would place it in the cave, and then after a period of time they would come back and take the bones and put them in a small box?
put them in a small box called
And
an
leave them in the
ossuary.
same cave?
Leave them in the same cave, that's right.
All right.
Yes.
So was the cave used for more than one person?
Oh, yes. A lot of times it was used for many generations. And you know, it would every time there was a new burial, they would move the boxes that were in there over and lay the body out, and then of course again a year later they would come in there and collect the bones and put it in and usually the boxes, Barry, were decorated with the name of the person on it and different things like that. We have found, for an example, and this is fascinating to me, we have found, for an example, the bone box of Caiaphas, the high priest during the time of Jesus, and but in his cave where we found his bone box were numerous others of the family, different ones for many generations, and
Well, I know the Egyptians embalmed. Well, what about the Israelites?
the Israelites didn't embalm. They didn't embalm at all, and the Egyptians are the only people in the ancient world that we know of that embalmed in the way that they did. And the Israelites did not embalm, and of course there are passages in both the Old and New Testament that talk about our bodies going back to dust, going back to the elements that God used to create man in the first place. And so it was a more natural, more agrarian, more rural society. And so you didn't have the elaborateness of the Egyptians or the ceremonial, motifs of the Sumerians in Mesopotamia and other peoples of the ancient world.
Well, the Egyptians, if I'm correct, believe that they needed to have all of these things to take with them into the world to come.
Right. In the afterlife, they needed, and so they stored food, and they even made little statues of servants, because supposedly, I guess they believed these servants would come alive and serve the master in the other world. And of course, this is a little statue, of a little Egyptian servant. This is called a Usharpte, and it just means little servant, and it's a good luck charm, and a little servant that would have been used in the other life, according to the Egyptians. And again, Israel, because of Yahweh, because of the one true God, was taught the truth about, the other life. Again, that's a fascinating study within itself. Other societies during that time period, Barry, and their beliefs about death and the afterlife and judgment as compared and contrasted to Israelite society. And then going on into the New Testament, the full revelation, God's final revelation for us, teaching about the coming judgment. Hebrews 9:27, it's appointed unto man once to die, then after this the judgment, and we will be judged by the words of this book, the Bible, and Jesus will be our judge at the end of time.
Well, that's just fascinating, I tell you. The various ways that people live their lives during biblical times, and although that we see there are differences, no doubt. Nevertheless, we see that there are common threads that we see in our families today. You were talking about in another program concerning the foods that they ate. We've got about a minute left, and I know that's not a lot of time, but I thought I might let you just elaborate a little bit more on that. You were talking about how bread was a big part of their diet. Fruit was also a big part of their diet.
Also vegetables and dairy products. Dairy products. They would use, common fruits were grapes, berry, olives, figs, dates, apples, and pomegranates. Among the vegetables, you have beans and cucumbers, lentils, onions, leeks, and garlics. And the dairy products, mostly derived from goats rather than cows, even though they did have some cows, were chiefly in the form of cheese and butter, But again, like I think I said earlier, maybe, meat was not very common to be used. Meat was more expensive. It was too expensive. But when they did use meat, they would use deer and gazelle and fish and fowl for food. But they had a lot of spices.
Yeah.
And honey was the dessert.
Oh, honey.
Yeah, the honey was the sweetener.
Well, that's
of their
fascinating.
diet. Yeah.
Gary, I want to thank you for being with us today. Our time has expired. We could continue talking about this for a long time. I'm Barry Gilray. Thank you for being with us today. Until next time,
Let's make the most of a minute.
Speech on, volume, music haptics, hearing device, mute, switch button, on.
You ever come to a decision and wonder what is the ethical thing to do? Ethics describes a person's standard of right and wrong in the treatment of others. I read an interesting book the other day by John C. Maxwell about ethics. In the beginning of the book, he tells how the publisher contacted him and said, "I want a book on business ethics." He immediately responded, "There's no such thing as business ethics, just ethics. And they apply equally across the board." Well, Maxwell is exactly right. Jesus taught the greatest rule of ethics ever known to man, and you can use it anywhere or with anyone, anytime in your life. Here's how it goes. Do unto others as you'd have them do unto you. Matthew chapter 7 and verse 12. A true Christian is going to be a Christian all of the time and with everyone. I'm Glenn Colley, hoping you make the most of your minutes.
Hello, I'm Jim Dearman, host of Good News Today. I'd like to invite you to join us for Good News Today every morning at 8 a.m. local time here on GBN Radio.
You are listening to WJHFLP 106.9 FM, sharing the truth, the whole truth, the gospel truth, broadcasting to Florence and the Muscle Shoals area. Sponsored by the Jackson Heights Church of Christ.
Speech off. Speech on, hearing devices, but notification, 62 battery, orientation locked, image, orientation locked. 20 playback or buffer, start recording, adjust playback position, 90 GBNFOL3, skip to next marker, unpause, button, next item, button, on 62 battery, 62 battery, volume, music, hearing device, mute, switch, page 1 of 3, screen brightness, selected, screen record.